Hello, thank you for listening. My name is Klaus Richter, and I want to tell you a story from a time when I was just 32 years old. A lifetime ago, and yet it breathes on the back of my neck every single night. Before the war, my world was built from paper and ink. It smelled of laid type, cheap coffee, and the electric hum of a newsroom on deadline. I was a journalist in Berlin, you see. I believed in the power of a well-constructed paragraph. I believed that if you arranged words with enough care, with enough honesty, you could build a fortress of truth. You could explain the world. I thought chaos was simply a story that hadn't found its proper narrator yet. The war taught me that some stories can only be written in blood and static, and that the most important words are the ones that are never spoken aloud. People think of a radio operator as a passive thing, a conduit, a wire that connects one voice to another. But what happens when the voices lie? What happens when one voice orders you to build a coffin and another whispers the blueprint for a key? For me, in the hell of that Belarusian summer, it all came down to a single question crackling through a dying machine. What is the truer story? The one they command you to tell, or the one you can barely hear, fighting to be born from the noise? It was late July 1944. The great Operation Bagration, the Soviet sledgehammer, had shattered our front. The word retreat wasn't used. That would imply order, control. This was a rout, a frantic, bleeding scramble west. My unit, what was left of the 25th Panzergrenadiers, was a collection of ghosts haunting a landscape of burning metal. We were near a town called Baranovichi, a name that tastes like ash in my mouth even now. The world had shrunk to the back of our SDKFZ, 251 half-track. It was a metal shell, stinking of sweat, diesel fumes, and the sour tang of fear. My world was even smaller. It was a pair of headphones clamped over my ears, and the gentle, deceptive glow of the Telefunken radio set. Outside, the world was ending. The symphony of the front had become a singular, deafening roar. The Soviets called it Stalin's organ, their Katyusha rockets. To me, it was the sound of a god tearing the sky apart with his bare hands. The air was thick and greasy with smoke, so heavy you felt you could chew on it. Every so often, the half-track would lurch as our driver, a boy named Rolf who couldn't have been more than 18, swerved to avoid a crater or the swollen remains of a horse. Inside, we were just 4 men, rattling around in a tin can, pretending we still belonged to an army. My commander, Oberleutnant Hasting, sat opposite me. He was a good man, which was a dangerous thing to be in 1944. His face was a roadmap of exhaustion, etched with dirt and stubble. He hadn't spoken more than 10 words at a time for days. He just watched the horizon, or what he could see of it, his eyes vacant. He trusted me. He trusted my radio. It was our only connection to a reality that wasn't the immediate, screaming chaos around us. It was our tether to the illusion of a plan, an illusion I was about to be forced to shatter. I remember the smell of hot vacuum tubes. It's a smell that takes me back there faster than any photograph. That, and the constant, whispering hiss of the static. S-H-H-H-H-H-H. It was the sound of the void, the sound of the vast, empty distance between us and anyone who could help. For days, it had been my only companion. I would spend hours turning the dial, coaxing a ghost of a voice from the ether. A weather report from Minsk already captured, a snatch of a propaganda broadcast from home, talking of glorious victories while we were being systematically annihilated. Lies, all of it just different flavors of lies. My old life felt like a dream. I could almost feel the solid weight of a fountain pen in my hand, see the clean black ink pooling on crisp white paper, the satisfaction of a sentence locking into place, perfect and true. In the newsroom, ambiguity was the enemy. Here, it was the air we breathed. A sentence could get you killed. A misplaced word, a misheard coordinate, the difference between life and a footnote in a casualty report. Then, it happened. Through the storm of static, a voice punched through. It was clear, horribly clear, military precision. The kind of voice that doesn't expect to be questioned. It was a relay from Army Group Center Command. I scribbled furiously on my notepad, my hands shaking. The pencil felt alien in my grip. The message was short, uncomplicated, and it was a death sentence. Regiment holds current position, no retreat. Fortify and repel attack from the east. Hold to the last man, by order of the Führer, last man. The words hung in the air inside the half-track. I didn't have to say them out loud yet. Hasting could see it on my face. The blood drained from his cheeks, leaving a pasty gray mask. Hold the position. Our position was a ditch on the side of a dirt track with a dozen exhausted men and 2 machine guns. The entire Soviet Third Army was the attack from the east. It wasn't an order. It was a demand for mass suicide. It was a paragraph for a future history book, written at the cost of every life I could see from my viewport. My thoughts were stripped gears, grinding uselessly. This was the moment I always feared, not the fear of a bullet or a shell, but the fear of the word, the fear of being the instrument of a fatal, pointless lie. My job was to pass the message to Hasting. He would give the order, and we would die. For what? So a man in a bunker 1,000 kilometers away could move a flag on a map and pretend he was still in control. My journalist's soul revolted. This wasn't a story of heroism. It was a cheap, badly written finale. I looked at Hasting. He was waiting. My throat was dry. I opened my mouth to speak, to deliver the executioner's words. But something made me pause, a flicker in the static, a ghost on another frequency I had been monitoring out of habit. I clamped the headphones tighter to my ears, turning a secondary dial. The main channel was silent now, its deadly message delivered. But on this other frequency, a tactical channel that was supposed to be silent, there was something. A voice, thin and frantic, tearing its way through the noise. It wasn't clean or precise, it was desperate. The signal was weak, like a man whispering from the bottom of a well. And Die Yeager, Thunderbird, I repeat, Thunderbird is go, 20 minutes, Forest Road, Godspeed. The voice was swallowed by a roar of static, then came back, gasping. Corridor Schmal, Panzerfall, get out. It was broken, fragmented. It was everything an official communication was not. It used a code word, Thunderbird, that wasn't in my daily codebook. It was unauthorized. It was probably a divisional commander, defying high command, trying to save some remnant of his men. It was hope, a sliver of a chance, a narrow corridor through the Soviet encirclement, a forest road, but it was also treason. Following it was desertion in the face of a direct FURA order, and there it was, my own personal hell delivered via vacuum tube. In my right ear, the clean, crisp, murderous lie of the high command. In my left ear, the chaotic, garbled, desperate whisper of a potential truth. One was an order, the other was mere information. My duty was clear, report the order, ignore the whisper, but I was a writer. I had spent my entire life reading between the lines. The first message was grammatically perfect, but it was a lie in its soul. It pretended we had a position to hold. It pretended repel was a possibility. The second message was a mess. A frantic, broken plea, but it felt true. It was drenched in the reality of our situation. It spoke of a narrow corridor and a tank trap. It acknowledged the desperation. The world stopped. The shelling outside faded to a dull hum. The stink of the half-track disappeared. It was just me, the two voices in my head, and the waiting eyes of Oberleutnant Hasting. This was not a choice between right and wrong. It was a choice between two stories. One was a tidy, noble-sounding obituary. The other was a messy, dangerous, uncertain story of survival. I had to choose which story to tell. I had to choose which words to say out loud. Time stretched. I saw Rolf, the driver, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, trying not to listen. I saw Hans, the machine gunner, staring at a picture of a girl tucked into his tunic. These were the characters of my story. I was the narrator. And the narrator has a terrible power. Klaus, Hastings' voice was quiet, but it cut through my paralysis. I took a breath. The words formed in my mind. I couldn't just relay the second message. That would be a death sentence of a different kind, a court-martial. I couldn't ignore it. That was a betrayal of every man here, so I did what I knew how to do. I edited. I took the pieces and arranged them to build a new truth. I looked Hastings straight in the eye. "Sir," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "Order from Army Group, we are to hold this position." I let the weight of that sink in. I saw the flicker of despair in his eyes. Then I continued seamlessly. "However, I've just intercepted fragmented enemy transmissions on a tactical frequency. High confidence. They are massing armor for a breakthrough attempt along the secondary forest road. Coordinates. I invented a set of coordinates that put the non-existent enemy exactly on the escape route the frantic voice had mentioned. It seems their immediate objective is to cut us off from the west. If they succeed, this position will be completely untenable. They're moving fast." I had not lied. I relayed the order, and I relayed the presence of a transmission. I had simply curated the information. I presented the whisper of hope not as a German escape route, but as a Soviet threat. A threat that any competent officer would be forced to react to. I had taken the truth and given it a different headline. Hastings stared at me. His eyes, for the first time in days, were sharp. He was an intelligent man. He knew what a direct FURA order meant. He also knew a field commander's first duty is to not allow his unit to be needlessly encircled and destroyed. He was looking for a reason, any reason, to justify the sane choice over the suicidal one. I had just given it to him. I had written him a way out that was not framed as cowardice, but as tactical necessity. He didn't question my high confidence. He didn't ask to see the transcript. He just gave me a long, searching look. An understanding passed between us in that moment, a silent acknowledgement of the game we were forced to play. He turned to Rolf. "Turn us around," he said, his voice hard as iron. "We are repositioning to counter a threat on our flank. Get us to that forest road. Schnell." The half-track roared to life. We were moving, not west in a retreat, but southwest to counter a threat. We were following the ghost's whisper, but with the official story of the noble lie as our cover. The journey was a nightmare, but the whisper was true. There was a corridor. It was narrow, shelled intermittently, and littered with the burning wreckage of those who had tried before us. But it was real. We made it through. Many others who only heard the official order did not. I never knew who sent that second message. I never knew how many others heard it. I only know that words, which I once thought were for building truth, became my tools for forging a lie that saved 30 men. I spent the rest of my life working with words, but never again with the same naive faith. I came to understand that an official report, a government decree, a declaration of war, they are all just stories. And you must always listen for the other story, the one crackling in the static, the one whispered in fear and desperation, because the official story is often designed to get you killed. The true story is the one that helps you live. I left journalism behind after the war. I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to report the official version of events ever again, knowing the messy, contradictory, and often life-saving truth that was always thrashing just beneath the surface. I had learned the most profound lesson of my life in the back of that half-track. In a time of absolute chaos, you don't choose between right and wrong. You choose between a convenient lie and a difficult truth. And you spend the rest of your days wondering if you narrated the right story. This memory is a piece of shrapnel I carry. It's heavy. Help me carry it. Subscribe and ensure these stories are never left to rust in silence.